Today we're going to go over the AFC East and what I think it's going to look like by the end of the 2023 season.
No huddle, Wilson end zone, caught, touchdown, Elijah Moore.
What is going on, guys? Welcome back to Talking Jets with Tigo. My name is Tigo, and today I wanted to go over the AFC East, what I think it's going to look like, really take a deep dive on all four of the teams, and project them moving forward into this season, and kind of see how I think things are going to end up. Before we get to that, guys, I wanted to say a huge thank you to Jets Today having me on the show and letting me do my own little shout out. I really wasn't fishing for that, but I really do appreciate him giving me that opportunity. I really just wanted to talk Jets, and I appreciate it. We got a boom of subscribers, and I can't thank you guys enough. Yesterday at this time, I was at 25 or 26 subscribers, and right now, as I'm recording this video, I'm at 43 subscribers. We're 7 away from that 50 mark, so if you haven't hit the subscribe button already, please do. It really helps out the channel grow and all of those things. I do want to give a quick shout out to another channel out there, NFL Chaos with Jeremy. He hit his 500 subscribers last night, and that was awesome of him. Really happy for him and what he's been doing. I've been watching him grind it out for a long time, and to see him hit 500 is awesome. And Buffalo Jet fan exploded. Like 2 weeks ago when I ran into him, he was like right at 500 subscribers. I think he's about to break 1,000. Really proud of those guys and what they've been able to do, and I hope to one day hit those numbers. But let's hop into today's video, and I want to talk about the AFC East and all of the things that can go well with these teams and all the things that can go wrong with these teams. So let's talk about the winners and the losers of the draft, and I think the offseason in general. And I think that when you look at winners and losers, I think that there are really only two teams that you can consider winners, and I think there are two teams that you can consider losers. And I think the two winners of the offseason go as follows. It goes one, the Buffalo Bills. It's not hard to see why Buffalo is as good as Buffalo is. They've got a really good team. They added players in free agency that are going to complement their team and really help to add to the depth. But also, they were the best team going into the season anyway. They're the reigning AFC East champs, and they're not unfamiliar with the playoffs. So it's really easy to see why this team looks as good as it does and going into next year. And let's talk about their draft class, because I think they're the only team in the AFC East outside of the Jets that I can say had a good draft. They've got a great staff up there in Buffalo, and I really like the additions of Kaiir Elam, James Cook, Terrell Bernard, Khalil Shakir, Matt Araiza. I think the addition of these players to Buffalo is going to be really good to their depth. I think Bernard is going to start in Buffalo there in that linebacking room. I'd love to see him alongside, Edmonds and Milano and things like that. Their safeties are their safeties. We know that. It's exciting to think about what Kaiir Elam is going to look like on the other side of Tre'Davious White. If Kaiir Elam can get his holding at the top of his routes fixed, which I think is a big problem of his, and it was one of his knocks going into the draft, they've got a really mean defense. And they already had a really mean defense going into this year, because that's their specialty. Now here's where I start putting a question in why I think the Buffalo Bills aren't so far out of reach that no team in the AFC East is going to be able to catch them, and that's the turnover that they had on the offensive side of their staff. With Brian Daboll getting up and leaving and going to the New York Giants to be the head coach there, it's not that far-fetched, and it's not that hard to think that this offense might take a step back. Replacing an offensive coordinator that helped turn Josh Allen into Josh Allen and make him a top 5 quarterback and put him in a scheme and all of these things that really benefits him, it's not hard to think that maybe they're going to take a step back on the offensive side of the ball. They added weapons in Jamison Crowder, and I really actually like this pickup. I like their wide receivers, but I really only look at their wide receivers as being 3 deep. We don't know what Khalil Shakir is going to be in that scheme, and I do think he's going to be wide receiver 4, and I do like Khalil Shakir, and I think that's great value where they got him in the 5th round, but we do still have some questions about that interior offensive line, that running back room, even with the addition of James Cook, still isn't where you would like it to be. And, they're losing their offensive coordinator. So I'm not saying that Buffalo is going to take a step back, but it's never easy going into a new system and a new scheme or anything like that. The assumption is that they're going to keep everything the same in the sense of scheme and system and fit, but every coach wants to put their own spin on things. Every coach wants to tweak and adjust and do those things that they are going to want to do with their offensive schemes. And I think that when you look at this and you look at the Buffalo Bills, they definitely are the team to catch in the AFC East, but it's not unimaginable and unthought of to think of that we might be able to catch them. And by we, I mean the entire AFC East might be able to catch them because they did have turnover on their offensive coaching staff, and turnover is good for the league because, like, obviously we're getting new blood and a new head coach and all that stuff. And I really like Brian Daboll in New York for the Giants, but we got to see what the Buffalo Bills offense is going to look like moving forward. Now, the next team that I wanted to talk about was the New York Jets, and this is my rankings of what I think the standings are going to look like for the season. I think that I'll go over it this way. I think it's going to go Buffalo, New York, New England, Miami, and I don't think this in a way like I think Miami's going to go 4-11 or like 4-13, I'm sorry, or anything like that. I think all of the division is going to be hovering at about like 9-13 wins. I think we've got a really, really competitive division. But when I get to Miami, I'll talk about what I think about Miami and why I think they're going to be in 4th place and why I think the Jets took a big step. So let's talk about the Jets and their team and the things that I think that they've done. So first things first, we got to talk about is I think unanimously we can all agree that the Jets won the draft. Being able to go out and add the number 1 corner with him being the 2nd corner taken, getting the number 1 wide receiver while he's being the 2nd wide receiver taken, us getting Jermaine Johnson, in my opinion, the number 2 edge rusher at 26, being able to pick up the number 1 running back in the league in this draft class. According to Phil Simms, is it Phil Simms? I don't remember. According to some people, the number 1 tight end in this class, adding Max Mitchell, a guy that I was really high on and really, really liked going into this draft as an offensive swing tackle and depth tackle, which is exactly what we wanted. And adding a player that plays with such violence and aggressiveness in Michael Clemens at the end of the round. We've added so much depth and rotation and high upside talent at the top of the round. Our first 5 picks are all going to be starters on this NFL team. And we got them for great value. And these guys would be starters on most NFL teams. Like, it's very hard to look at a team that wouldn't put Sauce Gardner as their cornerback 1. Like, unless they've got one of those like top 10 corners in the league. But it's hard to look at a team where Sauce Gardner isn't a starting corner. Maybe not their number 1 corner, but isn't a starting corner. It's hard to look at a team that wouldn't add Garrett Wilson and have them be one of their starting wide receivers. It's hard to look at a team where Jermaine Johnson doesn't immediately fill an edge position. It's hard to look at a team that won't upgrade Breece Hall. Like, there are those teams, Christian McCaffrey. I'm not going to replace Christian McCaffrey. I'm not going to replace Jonathan Taylor. I'm not going to replace Najee Harris or how could I forget King Henry? But Breece Hall really reminds me of Jonathan Taylor and his skill set and what he can do. Jeremy Ruckert, and I know that this is like the comps that I'm giving are massive comps here, but Jeremy Ruckert really reminds me of Kittle coming out of college and the skill set and the things that he can do. Garrett Wilson really looks like and reminds me of what Stephon Diggs looked like or Odell Beckham looked like coming out of college and their skill sets and things like that. Sauce Gardner looking like Antonio Cromartie, like inject these guys into my veins. Max Mitchell kind of looks like and reminds me of George Fant, who's our starting tackle on this team. And if he can develop into a starting tackle for this team, like that's exactly what we want. So the Jets knocked it out of the park when you look at it for the draft, but also going into free agency, we added really, really, really high value, high character, and highly productive members to this team. Us going out and adding Laken Tomlinson, an all-pro guard, to this offensive line is huge. Us going out and bringing in, Jordan Whitehead and DJ Reed to that secondary is huge and adds a lot to that defense and that secondary that struggled. Us going out and adding Jacob Martin and Solomon Thomas to that rotation on the defensive line is massive because we have something that we've never had before. And that's the true depth in these defensive positions that now we can really rotate and use that Robert Saleh front four the way that he wants to be used. He wants fresh legs on every snap, and he wants high value, high motor guys coming in and going after the passer, and we have that. And I did skip over this position group on purpose because let's just talk about the fact that 15 months ago, the only tight end that was on our roster that's possibly going to be in the starting rotation of rosters was Trevon Wesco. We added CJ Uzama coming from the Cincinnati Bengals, so he knows how to help develop a young quarterback, and he knows what building up a culture is like. Tyler Conklin is incredibly underrated and was underutilized in Minnesota, and you add him to a team that's going to know how to take advantage of his skill set because we want to run 12 and 22 personnel all day, and then you add Jeremy Ruckert in the draft. That is a three-headed monster in the tight end room that is unknown, like that people aren't going to expect. And then you add running back depth and wide receiver depth and all of the things that we have on the offensive line. And Mekhi Becton's coming back healthy. I really look at our team as the New York Jets, and I look at us as a team that took a massive step forward this offseason. And I think the most important thing, and why I think that we're going to be the second place team in the AFC East, is we are the only team in the AFC that has 100% continuity in our coaching staff. We did not lose a single member of our coaching staff. We're running the same offensive scheme into year 2. We're running the same defensive scheme into year 2. And all we did was add talent and add depth. We didn't lose very many big-name free agents to any other teams. Yes, you could talk about Marcus May leaving or Morgan Moses leaving, but we didn't really lose any of our core pieces in New York. And the exact opposite. We added so much depth and so many pieces to our team that is only going to help us elevate it. And when you take into consideration the biggest part of this, we're the only team in the AFC East with 100% continuity on our entire coaching staff. It's not hard to imagine the New York Jets coming into this season and being a 10-win team. I think we can take it to every team in the AFC East, and I have us splitting games with every single team in the AFC East because I honestly and truthfully think we can beat the Buffalo Bills and we can go to war with them. I honestly think that we can take it to the New England Patriots. I honestly think that we can take it to the Miami Dolphins. And that's the first time in a long time that I can say that comfortably and that I feel that way truly. So it's really, really cool to think about it like that and to think about the fact that we've got a team that we can be excited about. Next, let's talk about the New England Patriots and kind of what they've done for their team. Let me start by saying that I am not a big fan of what New England has done this offseason. You lose Hightower, and you really didn't do anything to replace him. You lose J.C. Jackson. They don't really do anything to replace him. I do like the addition of Devonta Parker on the wide receiver room. It really is going to be something that's going to help Mac Jones. I do like the addition of Pierre Strong, the running back out of South Dakota State. You have to bolster that run game. Even though I like Cole Strange, I don't like Cole Strange in the top of the first. I think that that's an incredible, massive reach. Tyquan Thornton is another one of those guys with just an incredibly massive reach. And I get why you would take Tyquan Thornton. He's a speed guy, right? Didn't he run the fastest 40 time at the combine? But like, guys, I want to talk about this, and I want to be... Let me start by saying that Bill Belichick is the GOAT when it comes to coaching, right? I'm not trying to disrespect Bill, but Bill hasn't had a good draft, like, measurably since 2013, where he's taken players that have been like, oh my gosh, like, look at these guys. Like, these guys are great players. He hasn't had that since 2013. He's been doing really well drafting, you know, role players and things like that, but where he's shined is in free agency. And this free agent class that he brought in this last year is kind of okay. You know, the draft is, like, let's just be honest, it's not a good draft this year. You overdrafted Cole Strange, you overdrafted Tyquan Thornton, I think you overdrafted Marcus Jones, you overdrafted Jack Jones. Pierre Strong, great value. I don't understand the Bailey Zapp pickup in the 4th round. You know, it just seems like they just went with a lot of these guys where it's just like, you needed starters on this team. Mac Jones started off the year hot, but like, how many games are you going to go into where like you're not going to trust him against the defense? And he lost his offensive coaching staff. With that offensive staff going to Vegas, he's going to be running a new system in year 2. And how often are you going to be able to like, and we still don't know what their offense is going to look like. Bill hasn't hired an offensive coordinator. It looks like he's going to be calling the plays. And it's just like, how many games can you play where you're going to run the ball the entire game and only ask him to throw the ball 4 times or 5 times? It's not a sustainable way of playing the football, like playing football in this day and age. You need to trust Mac Jones and you need to ask him to throw the ball more. And I just don't look at this team as saying like, yeah, they're going to be able to do that successfully or really, really well. The biggest thing for me is I think that defense is going to take a big step back, losing players like J.C. Jackson, losing players like Donta Hightower. Like these are big, big losses on that defensive side of the ball. And I don't think that they've added anybody on this team that really has the potential to play up to that. Now, you can never count Bill Belichick out because it is Bill Belichick. But my biggest thing is if we're going to go into this year with the expectation that you're going to go into just a shootout with the way that defense looks, let me say, I love that safety room out there. I still think that your linebackers look good. But if the expectation is that you're just going to go into a shootout with all of these teams, in the AFC East, I have more confidence in the Buffalo Bills and the New York Jets getting into shootouts, especially with the weapons that the Jets have just added in this offseason, and Buffalo being Buffalo and having Josh Allen, than I do New England. I don't think Mac Jones is going to be a special quarterback. I think he's Kirk Cousins. I think he's Dak Prescott. I think he's a game manager quarterback who can definitely come in, limit mistakes, and really just get the ball exactly where he needs it to be. But he's not a deep threat quarterback where you're worried about him taking the top off of you because he has a massive arm. He's not a super crazy athletic quarterback where you're worried about his legs. He's just kind of there. And I hope that Mac Jones does take a step forward and really elevate his game because I want all of these players to work out. I do. I really hope and pray that all of these players that get drafted work out. But the likelihood of that happening is relatively low. And when you've got a player like Mac Jones whose ceiling athletically and talent-wise isn't that high, and you're limiting yourself in that position, you need to surround that guy with incredible amounts of talent. And they've started doing that. Devonta Parker is a great pickup. Jacoby Myers looked really good last year. You hope that Aguilar takes a step forward. They added help to the running back room, which they definitely do need to add because of how much they use that running back room. And the offensive line is great, especially with the addition of Cole Strange, which my assumption is that he's going to play at left guard. But that defense doesn't look good with the pieces that they lost and the lack of ability to replace those pieces. So I think they take a step back next year. I don't think that that team goes to the playoffs next year. a new offensive coaching staff and all of those things. We don't know what it's going to be. And that question mark is a really, really big question mark for me in my eyes. And then last but not least, let's talk about the Miami Dolphins. Now, before I get Miami Dolphins fans in my mentions being like, oh, you guys suck, you guys need to win something, let me start by going at Miami Dolphins fans' throats and say, you guys haven't won a playoff game in like 20 years. At least the Jets have done that, okay? But I want to talk about realistically why I think it's going to be one step back so that you guys can take 3 steps forward the year after that. And the real thing here is the new coaching staff. That's the thing that everybody isn't taking into consideration. The new scheme that the Miami Dolphins are going to be running is not as easy as people think that it is going to be to pick up. We've seen good teams going in and adding pieces and coaching and all of this stuff of the Shanahan tree. But the biggest thing that we need to talk about is that it's not as easy as everyone thinks to implement this system. We've seen better teams implement the system and take a step back. Look at LaFleur in Green Bay. They took one step back before they took 4 or 5 massive steps forward. You know, again, the Jets weren't a great roster, but look at the Jets last year. They did add a lot of new players, but it wasn't that easy to implement that system, especially if you don't have the pieces to introduce that system. And I look at the Miami Dolphins and their anemic draft. They walked away with 4 picks, and of those 4 picks, I like one of them. And that's Channing Tindall, the linebacker out of Georgia. That guy's a baller, and he's going to come in, and I honestly think he's going to be one of your starting linebackers, and I truthfully think that he's going to be the best linebacker taken out of those Georgia 3 that got drafted. I love Channing Tindall that much. I really, really like this guy. I think he has the highest ceiling of those guys, and I believe in that coaching staff in Miami to develop him. And the team is really, really deep, and you guys have those pieces, but trading for Tyreek Hill and giving up essentially your entire draft this year and not addressing a really, really bad offensive line unit outside of adding Teron Armstead, which is a massive add. Let me say this. I think you've fixed the left side of your offensive line. Your left tackle and your left guard, I believe in those guys. I think that Teron Armstead and Connor Williams, like those are 2 really good offensive line players. But I don't believe in your center. I don't believe in Robert Hunt. I don't believe in Liam Eichenberg. I love Liam Eichenberg, and I don't think that he's ready to start yet as a tackle. You know, it's just, I look at your guys' offensive line, and I go, that's still a massive issue. And then my biggest question mark, obviously, is Tua. I'm not the biggest Tua fan. I think that you guys have put all of the pieces around Tua and Tyreek Hill and Waddle. Like, they're great, great wide receivers, and Edmonds in your backfield, and Gesicki bringing him back in the franchise tag is a good thing. And I think that you guys are going to win games next year. But I think you guys run it back. I think you guys go 9-8 this year. And the only reason I say that is because we do have question marks on that offensive line. And trust me, from personal experience and a lot of looking up this Kyle Shanahan tree, whenever this system gets introduced year 1, a lot of teams struggle with the addition of this offensive system and the zone running scheme and all of the things that the tight ends are asked to do. It's difficult. So I expect the team to kind of plateau because I think the talent is there, and I really like what they've done in Miami, but this system is really, really difficult to do something well in and to really, really pick up in year 1 and to really change your entire offensive scheme because you guys weren't running like a wide zone run scheme. You weren't running anything close to this on offense last year, and how much turnover you had in your offensive coordinator room over the last couple of years really has to come into the heads of players like Tua and things like that. And so that's my situation and what I believe about the Miami Dolphins, and that's why I have them going as the 4th best team into this season. I expect you guys to go 9-8, 8-9, somewhere in that situation, just because, again, the system is really hard. But you give your coaching staff 1 year, and next year you guys are right back into the thick of it. And I think that we're looking at a really, really deep AFC East that can take it to most teams in the NFL. Let me know what you guys think about my rankings, and I think what's going to happen next year. I think that it was fair. I wasn't trying to be a very Jets homer. It's hard not to be a Jets homer when you look at the things like that, but it's not out of this world to expect teams to take a massive jump after having a draft and an offseason like this. And I know that people are going to be like, oh, but blah, blah, blah. Like, I hear you, but the Bengals were able to do it. And I think personally that Zach Wilson is ultimately going to be a better quarterback than Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow came in with an incredibly high floor, and I think he has a really high ceiling as well. But I think you give Zach Wilson year 2, you've added all these weapons, you fixed his offensive line. There's no excuses for Zach going into this year. This team is going to be good. Watch out. But let me know what you guys think. I really enjoyed making this video. And last but not least, go Jets.